Evidence secured at marker 4. Advise command we are holding the scene.
Copy that. It's getting heavier out here.
That was really a tense scenario inside that courtroom just a few hours ago. 6 deputies surrounded Aaliyah Henderson as she stood there emotionless as prosecutors accused her of killing her 2 young daughters.
I always walk her over across the street, and she stopped. It was like a pile of dirt, and she stopped sniffing, and I usually just walk and she catch up with me, and she was taking too long, so I went back and looked, and it was a suitcase that was like half buried, and I pulled it up and looked in it. It was a head, somebody's head in it, and I immediately called the police. You can see the case from back here. It's all the way straight to the back.
Close to that sign?
Yeah, see the little black
straight ahead in front of me? Okay.
Straight,
it's a suitcase?
It's a suitcase. I've been walking past it for about a week now because I take my dog. I stay right here. I take my dog. I usually walk her through there and then come around here.
Okay.
And for the last week, she's been stuck. It was like a mound of dirt. She's been stopped and sniffing like a little too long. Okay. And today I was like, well, I'm going to take it. I hope it's not what I'm...
Right.
And it was halfway buried. It's about this thick. It's about halfway buried. I pulled it up, unzipped it. I couldn't really see. And I opened it up and head.
Buried under the dirt it was?
Yeah, halfway. Okay. You can see a little part of it sticking out.
And you said you noticed it for about a week already?
Yeah, it's been sitting over there like somebody buried it or tried to bury it.
He unzipped that luggage and found a child's eyes staring right back at him. That is where this story begins. It doesn't start in a police station or a courtroom or in the clinical language of an official investigation. It starts along a fence line near Sarinac Playground in Cleveland on a freezing Monday night. It begins with a man, his dog, a half-buried suitcase, and a zipper that never should have been pulled. Philip Donaldson has not been able to sleep a single wink since that moment. Patrol cars swarmed the scene within minutes, confirming the horror the caller reported and cordoning off the entire area.
Okay, I'm going to check it out. I'll be with you. Thank you. Okay. I was going to have you grab my flashlight, but that's all right. When you get up here, if you go down 162, like I went up Sarinac, 162, you can just pull in this parking lot for this Ginn Academy, and you'll see me back here. So I haven't opened it yet. The dude I talked to, the caller, he said that there was this suitcase partially like buried in the ground that he said he's been noticing for like a week, and his dog keeps trying to get to it. So he said that he pulled it out today and to see what was in there because it was kind of heavy, and he noticed like a head and he just left it and called the police. So I'll just wait till you guys get here before I open it. All right.
Then, because investigators are trained to keep looking when they find a body in the dirt, they searched for more. 30 feet away, they found a second suitcase, also partially shoved into the frozen ground. Inside was a second child, 2 little girls, 2 separate suitcases. Someone hid them under weeks of Cleveland snow in shallow graves next to a school where people walk dogs and drive to work, never imagining the field they pass held something so unspeakable. How long had they been lying in the cold? No one knew the answer yet. The winter snow had blanketed them so perfectly that investigators couldn't say if it had been weeks or months. Detectives began processing evidence, and the answers finally started coming. When the truth came out, it was more sickening than anyone feared, because the person who stuffed those girls in suitcases and buried them was their mother. One of those girls had a father who had been desperately hunting for her for 5 years, calling child services, filing for emergency custody, and begging the courts to listen. He pleaded with anyone who would listen to help him find his daughter. No one helped him in time. Her name was Mila Chapman. She was only 8 years old, and she had been living within sight of the very field where she was found, while her father spent 5 years trying to reach her. He still remembers her exactly as she was.
She is happy, always smiling, always cheesing. She was a kid's kid, Girly girl, kids, kid.
He told me he's been trying to get custody of his daughter, who was about to turn 9, for 5 years, but hasn't seen her for 4, as the girl's mother, he said, was constantly moving.
In the last 5 years, I done had so many different lawyers. Even the lawyers couldn't get it. They told me if I don't have no address for it, there's nothing we can do.
He saw the story.
The second girl was Amar Wilson, 10 years old. They were half-sisters, sharing a mother but having different fathers. Both were found in suitcases in a frozen field near a Cleveland school on the night of March 2nd, 2026. Both were murdered by the woman who was biologically obligated to protect them above everyone else on earth, their mother. But the failure didn't start with her. If this story makes your skin crawl, it should. Because this isn't fiction. This happened just days ago. A father learned his daughter was dead from a murder detective after 5 years of searching, and police found a third child alive in that house. Somewhere in the system that was supposed to keep Amar and Mila safe, there were massive failures. These failures were so profound and catastrophic that 2 little girls ended up in suitcases in the frozen dirt, while the adults in their lives just went on with their days. We cannot let them be forgotten. Stay with me, because Amar Wilson and Mila Chapman deserve more than silence. Every single person watching this needs to know exactly what happened to them and why it was allowed to happen. If you are watching this for the first time, subscribe right now, because this channel exists for moments exactly like this one. These 2 children need the world to pay attention. Their story is still unfolding, and the only thing standing between justice and silence is people refusing to look away. Subscribe and stay with me. Look at the map. Understand the geography first, because in a case like this, location is everything. East 162nd Street in Cleveland is a modest residential neighborhood, the kind of block you'd find in any American city. There are houses, streets, and a school, the ordinary community infrastructure trying to hold itself together. Gin Academy anchors the block, with Sarinac Playground sitting right next to it. Between the school, the playground, and the road is a field, not a park, just urban dead space. It's the kind of unremarkable ground that becomes invisible to the people who pass it every day because there is nothing there worth looking at. Until a dog wouldn't stop digging. On the evening of March 2nd, 2026, Philip Donaldson was walking his dog. It was a totally normal Monday until his dog led him toward the fence line at Sarinac Playground and stopped. She locked onto something in the frozen ground and wouldn't move. Donaldson approached the fence and found a suitcase, partially buried, with the zipper exposed. It was such a familiar object that his mind resisted the horror, even though that is exactly what it contained. He pulled the zipper and called 911 immediately. Not one soul reported them missing. Officers arrive, confirm Donaldson's find, and discover a second suitcase 30 feet away. It was the same shallow grave, hidden by snow for weeks while the neighborhood carried on directly above the bodies. Police Chief Dorothy Todd stood before cameras the following afternoon and described the officers' discovery as terrible and horrific. She confirmed the girls were intact, not dismembered, and were found exactly as they were placed. She confirmed the victims appeared to be between 8 and 14 years old, both black. Then, she shared the detail that transformed this devastating discovery into something even more disturbing. No local missing persons report matched these girls. Not a single one.
9 that was in a shallow grave inside of a suitcase. The officers immediately began their investigation as they canvassed the area for any potential evidence on scene. The officers located what appeared to be a second shallow grave, and they could tell that there was a second suitcase in that location. The officers at that time identified that there was a body inside of that second suitcase as well. The only updates we have at this time are that the individuals are 2 juvenile black females. The one individual is suspected to be anywhere between 13. The second is estimated to be of the age of 10.5 to 14. At this time, there are no clear indicators of the cause of death of the 2 young females. Good question. We have checked our, locally, we have no reports of any missing children that match these identifications. We are checking statewide as well. We also have the assistance from our federal, state, and local partners. This is a priority. This is a traumatic event for our officers, for the community, and this is just such a tragic incident.
The search hit state and national databases immediately, and investigators began the urgent forensic work of identifying 2 children whose names the world did not yet know. Drop a comment right now. 1 word. Tell me how you are feeling at this moment. I read every single one. While investigators were running database searches and processing forensic evidence, Deshawn Chapman was somewhere in Cleveland, living the specific torture of a father who had lost his child, not to death, but to a system that kept moving her beyond his reach. He had been looking for Mila for 5 years. 5 years. Mila Chapman was 3 years old the last time Deshawn Chapman saw her. 3 years old. Just old enough to know her father's face. Just old enough to have the deep bond between a parent and child that exists in the body before it exists in memory. That was in 2020. And from 2020 onward, Deshawn Chapman did everything a father can do through legitimate channels to find his daughter and get her back. He called Child Protective Services multiple times. He filed for emergency custody in court. He requested welfare checks. He pursued every avenue that the legal and social systems make available to a parent who believes their child is in danger and cannot reach them. He was denied repeatedly. Access denied. Repeatedly access denied. Emergency custody denied. Welfare checks went nowhere. A system that, for whatever combination of procedural and bureaucratic reasons, could not connect a father who was looking for his daughter to a daughter who was living just down the street from the field where her body would eventually be found. Wet that land. Mila Chapman was living on East 162nd Street. Her father was looking for her, and the distance between them, the gap the system failed to close for 5 years, was measured not in miles, but in the impenetrable walls that bureaucracy builds around children when the adults responsible for them know how to navigate those walls to keep others out. When investigators knocked on Deshawn Chapman's door to tell him what they had found, what forensic DNA analysis had confirmed, he learned that his daughter was dead, not from a missing persons alert or a welfare check or any of the channels he had spent 5 years working. He learned from a homicide detective. His little girl, 8 years old, Mila, who he described as happy-go-lucky, always smiling, favorite color pink, who swore she was a princess, a kid's kid. The child he had been fighting to reach for 5 years was gone, had been gone for some time, buried in a suitcase in a field 30 feet from a playground. He could not save her because the system that was supposed to help him failed. Their names are Amar Wilson and Mila Chapman. Say them. Say both of them, because they were real children with real identities and real personalities and real lives that existed fully before a single thing in this story happened to them. Amar Wilson was 10 years old, a decade of life, old enough to have memories that stretch back years, old enough to have a sense of herself, who she was, what she liked, what made her laugh, old enough to know that something was very wrong in the life she was living, old enough that the world she inhabited should have had multiple systems in place to notice if she needed help. They were half-sisters, same mother. DNA confirmed the relationship, which means they shared a home, shared a life, shared the circumstances that ended both of their lives in that field on East 162nd Street. They were homeschooled. That detail, confirmed by Cleveland City Councilman Mike Polensek, is one of the most significant in this entire case, because homeschooling removes a child from one of the most powerful external monitoring systems that exists in American society. School is where teachers notice bruises, where counselors observe behavioral changes, where mandatory reporters interact with children on a daily basis and are legally obligated to flag what they see. When children are homeschooled by the person harming them, that monitoring disappears. The outside world loses its most reliable window into the daily reality of a child's life. And a mother who knows how to keep her children away from the systems designed to see them can maintain a level of control and concealment that is almost impossible to penetrate from the outside. Amar and Mila were invisible to those systems, and they paid for that invisibility with their lives. On Wednesday evening, Days after Philip Donaldson's dog found those suitcases at the fence line, detectives raided a house on the 700 block of East 162nd Street. This property sat right near that field, right near those suitcases, and steps from the shallow graves where Amar Wilson and Mila Chapman lay buried under Cleveland snow. While the world moved on, the search found something truly unthinkable inside. Inside that home, investigators found significant evidence. This proof transforms a tragic discovery into a criminal case with a named suspect and documented legal charges. They also found something else inside that house, a third child alive in seemingly good health. That child, whose identity has not been publicly released, was immediately taken into the legal custody of the Department of Children and Family Services for their protection. And Aaliyah Henderson, 28 years old, the mother of both Amar Wilson and Mila Chapman, was arrested and indicted on 2 counts of aggravated murder. 2 counts. 1 for each daughter. 1 for the 10-year-old who had been living in a home just down the street from the field. 1 for the 8-year-old whose father fought for 5 years through every legal channel to reach her. Does it get any worse than this? Their mother, the person whose arms were supposed to be the safest place on earth for them both, is now charged with their murders. Pause. If you need a moment, take it, then hit the like button so Amar and Mila's story reaches every single person who needs to hear it. One tap for them now. City Councilman Mike Polensek raised a point that deserves our full attention in the aftermath of this case. The home where Aaliyah Henderson lived, with her kids, the house just down the block from the field, looked perfectly well kept from the outside, showing no signs of neglect. This was not an obviously distressed property that might trigger a welfare concern from a neighbor or a city code inspector. A maintained house, the kind of exterior that tells anyone passing by that there is absolutely nothing wrong here. Inside that house, 2 children were dead or dying. A third child was living in conditions that investigators are still working to fully understand, while their mother maintained a facade of normalcy sufficient to avoid detection for a significant time. Do you see the pattern? This is one of the most chilling parts of this. The concealment was layered. Homeschooling removed those girls from school. That maintained exterior removed them from the concern of neighbors. The bureaucratic walls that Deshawn Chapman hit for 5 years removed them from a father's protective reach. And the snow, that Cleveland winter accumulating for weeks, hid the physical evidence of what happened to them. Layer after layer of concealment was used to hide the absolute truth. Each factor is individually explainable. Together they created an invisibility so complete that 2 children were buried before anyone outside that home knew anything had happened to them. Polensek's observation about the well-kept house is not incidental here. It is a window into how this level of harm is hidden, the performance of normalcy through the careful management of appearances. It was a cold understanding, whether conscious or instinctive, that looking completely ordinary is the most effective protection against any kind of formal investigation. Aaliyah Henderson maintained that act until a dog found a suitcase by the fence on March 2nd, and the snow began to give up its secrets. How long did it last? City Councilman Polensek has been direct here. He is publicly asking how 2 children could be dead and buried in a residential field without anyone in the system that protects kids even knowing. These questions demand answers from the institutions responsible for child welfare in Cuyahoga County and in Ohio. Why did the system fail them so badly and completely? Those answers cannot arrive as a simple and bureaucratic exercise. We do not need an internal review that produces a report for a shelf. We need real accountability. We need a structural examination of what went wrong to build systems that work for the next child who needs them. Because we know there will be a next. There always is. Will Amar and Mila's deaths change anything about the systems that failed so miserably to keep them safe? Tell me why. I want to ask you something directly now. If you have contacted Child Protective Services about a child and felt ignored, comment below, because this conversation must be bigger than one case. Your own experience matters to this story today. Aaliyah Henderson is now charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder. She appeared in Cleveland Municipal Court on Friday morning. The legal process to determine her full level of accountability has finally begun. but several significant questions have not yet been publicly answered by the investigators. Consider the cause of death. Autopsies for both girls are finished, but the final results remain pending. Exactly how they died, the specific mechanism of their deaths, has not been publicly confirmed by the medical officials yet. That information will be a central element of the prosecution's case and will shape our understanding of exactly what happened in that house on East 162nd Street. They lay in that cold grass for weeks before a stranger's dog found them. Heavy winter snow buried the evidence, making it nearly impossible for forensic teams to track the timeline. Determining exactly when Amar and Mila perished and how long they waited in that field for Philip Donaldson's dog to find them remains a haunting, unfinished piece of the puzzle investigators are still assembling today. What was the motive? It is the one question that screams through the center of this tragedy, a riddle the courts will dissect, but the human soul can never truly grasp. What actually transpired behind those closed doors? Or what darkness drove Aaliyah Henderson to commit the atrocities she now stands accused of? Detectives are still digging. The charges are official. This legal marathon will likely stretch across months or even several years. The horrific reality of what Amar Wilson and Mila Chapman suffered will only surface in slow, agonizing drips. It will come through cold forensic data, the shaken testimony of lead investigators, and the grim findings of medical examiners speaking for the dead. Yet, the core horror is already undeniable. 2 innocent girls are gone, and their mother is facing murder charges. Their father fought for 5 years to reach them, only to hit a wall at every turn, while a third child survives, haunted by the shadows she witnessed inside that house, now trapped in the very system that failed her sisters so miserably. You do not need a jury to tell you this is a catastrophe. It demands that we refuse to look away or let these names get buried in some archive while the slow gears of justice grind in the background. Some words in this case are so heavy they need to be heard exactly as spoken. Strip away the context, the systemic failures, and the criminal jargon. Just listen to the heart of this loss. Deshawn Chapman finally spoke about Mila once the coroner confirmed what he already feared. He remembered the 3-year-old girl who thought the world was her kingdom, a child who loved the color pink and wore a bright smile like it was a royal crown. Mila was pure joy. He said she was always smiling, always chasing anything pink. She truly believed she was a princess. Mila, Amar, they both deserved a world that cherished them instead of this. They should be here. Their names are Amar Wilson, 10, and Mila Chapman, 8. Why did the safeguards meant to protect these children crumble so completely? Those questions are finally being screamed aloud. But some truths do not require a courtroom verdict or a government review to be recognized as absolute facts. Say their names: Amar Wilson, Mila Chapman. We must hold their memory tight, because they deserved a world that knew they actually mattered. They mattered then, and they matter now. They will always matter. Subscribe to help us seek justice. Like and share this video everywhere. Amar and Mila's story cannot just end with a pair of handcuffs. This journey continues through every grim court date and every forensic discovery that their deaths force us to confront and answer. Pass this on. Stick with us. Do not let their light fade into the noise. For Amar, for Mila, and for Deshawn Chapman, the father who never quit, and for the survivor who deserves the world, I will see you in the next one.